Hello chess friends and welcome to your Azarov Chess channel and welcome to a spectacular and beautiful game that I think has great theoretical value. Welcome to an amazing gameplay by Super Ultra against Stockfish 17 in an amazing Lasker-Pelikan Sicilian, also called the Sveshnikov Sicilian. In my opinion, the Lasker-Pelikan Sicilian is really one of the best ways to play against e4. Is I think one of the best openings as black, and Magnus Carlsen played this opening very often in his World Chess Championship match in 2018 against Fabiano Caruana with a great success. I think Magnus got out of the opening really in a good way, and there is one problem I would say about this Lasker-Pelikan Sicilian. Among many weaknesses, there is also the problem of the Darsko bishop, and that's what I liked about this game that I wanted to show you today, in which Stockfish will show us how to improve, how to get the maximum activity of the Darsko bishop, because the bishop is sometimes really bad piece that doesn't have so much to attack, but Stockfish will find really beautiful maneuver of the bishop, really great novelty, in my opinion. Great theoretical game, but then of course you can guess what happens. It's also a great tactical game, so we'll see again the tactical Stockfish, which will create really madness all over the board. So let's see now what happened with the white pieces. Super Ultra opened with the move e4, c5 by the fish, the Sicilian, knight to f3, and so far we have the French variation of the Sicilian defense, but the game won't transpose into the Lasker-Pelikan Sicilian after a couple more moves, but with a little bit different move order. We'll do both move orders now in this game. Here after move e6 in the original game, d4 has been played by Super Ultra, the open Sicilian, and now after knight to f6, knight to c3, knight to c6, we have now the 4 knights variation. Super Ultra goes immediately for the attack against this d6 weakness. Stockfish improves it. Here Super Ultra puts more pressure against this pawn on d6, so that's why Stockfish is forced now to play the move e5. Bishop to g5, and now after a6, knight to a3 and b5, we have reached now the Lasker-Pelikan Sicilian, the so-called Sveshnikov Sicilian. You can get this position also in a different move order. After knight to f3, in the beginning you can play here instead of e6, you can play also knight to c6, and then after d4, the open Sicilian, you hit the knight. We have the 4 knights variation, and now you play immediately the move e5, which becomes now the Lasker-Pelikan Sicilian, and after bishop to g5, a6, knight to a3 and b5, we would reach the same position but with a little bit different move order. So see, both approaches are playable, but here in the original game, if the game started, adds the French variation of the Sicilian defense. So we are reaching now this position. This is now the critical position, and here Super Ultra continues of course with enormous pressure against this knight to f6. We have now bishop to e7, and now after bishop to f6 and bishop to f6, let's stop and evaluate a little bit the position. Why does white give up here the bishop for a knight? There is, of course, first of all, a huge positional problem in black's camp already. We have now the weakness on d5, which white immediately occupied, and also we have the backward pawn, which could be, of course, a strategic disadvantage in a potential endgame, especially. So two weaknesses already in black's camp. Also, what's a problem, the Darsko bishop of blacks is a little bit misplaced. It's blocked by its own pawn structure, so usually you are trying to do some improvements of the Darsko bishop on this diagonal. But even if you get this bishop on this diagonal, it will basically attack nothing. It's aiming into air. So that's the issue, I think, about the Lasker-Pelikans. It's in that you are not targeting anything. What would you love to do, of course, is to get the bishop somehow here. You would love to get the bishop on a7 where it's attacking already the f2 weakness, and that's exactly what will happen in this beautiful game here, in this beautiful theoretical novelty by Stockfish 17. Stockfish will find a way how to get this bishop on a much more effective diagonal. So Stockfish will use now the maximum activity of the Darsko bishop. Here the continuation c3 has been played by Super Ultra with the preparation to, of course, play knight to c2, knight to e3, fix simply the position around the square d5, because that's the weakness that we have here, of course, from black's perspective. Stockfish continues with rook to b8, prepares now b4, Super Ultra prevents it, and now bishop to g5. Now comes this idea. Stockfish is desperately trying now to get at least some kind of an activity of the Darsko bishop, but the issue is nothing will be there. So you're aiming into air, you're basically targeting nothing. So that's the issue. Somehow we want to get this bishop on this beautiful diagonal. G3 here by Super Ultra, casting by the fish, h4, bishop to h6, and now Super Ultra goes into a strategic idea to trade off the Lasker bishops, because the Lasker bishops should be off the board, because the Lasker-Bishop of blacks is the only piece that could maybe somehow endanger this knight on d5. So Super Ultra is getting rid of the key defender of light squares that has that black has already as a disadvantage that we have talked about. But Stockfish is not allowing this. Plays now the must move, I would say, bishop to e6. Now after bishop to e6, if you play this wasn't playing the game, finally this knight would be kicked away, and now after, I don't know, kingside castle, you cannot pick up the knight immediately because of this tactic, but you play something like, I don't know, rook to c8, and then after knight to e3. At least now the dark square bishop is attacking something, the position is about equal, but without further complications around the square d5. And then later maybe we can make progress from black's perspective somehow if we manage to bring a rook behind to push the pawn on d5. So that's why here after bishop to e6, Super Ultra tried knight to b4, Stockfish took, Super Ultra took, and now a rook to b7. We have now bishop takes e6, f takes e6, and the issue is now you cannot pick up this pawn here on a6. Tricky idea here by the fish. Then you get this one, queen to b6, and then you get destroyed around the square f2. So that's why after kingside castling, Stockfish plays now rook to f7. Stockfish builds now enormous pressure against this pawn on f2. Again, you cannot take it with the same pattern, queen to b6, and the game is over here for white. So here after rook from b to f7, Super Ultra tried knight to d3, and now comes in what is in my opinion really important and critical moment of the game. Here in chess history, queen to c7 has been played, and also queen to c8, but Stockfish found here really beautiful novelty, and I was really surprised that no one played this move. Also in grandmaster level, here bishop to e3 played by the fish, and now the bishop gets activated. You could maybe try f takes e3, but then rook to f1, queen to f1, rook takes f1. White could continue the game with a rook and a minor piece against the queen, which is in my opinion not enough compensation in such a battle. So that's why here king to g2 by Super Ultra, and now bishop to a7. And that's now a different story. Look at this. On this diagonal, when the bishop was on h6, it didn't target anything. Now it's targeting the f2 square. The rooks are creating this really beautiful battery. The queen will eventually come into the game somehow. The queen is of course the best piece, but now at least we are having something, and I think it's really beautiful thematic attack now by Stockfish. We have now a4 by Super Ultra, b takes a4, rook to a4. Now we have a new weakness here, the weak pawn on a6, and Stockfish improves it with a5. Super Ultra continues with queen to g4, queen to a1. If you ask yourself the question, should white go for the attack against the pawn on a5? Actually, this is not good because of d5, and you could maybe grab the pawn here, but then bishop to b6, we attack the rook, and then you pick up here the pawn. The knight will finally get deflected from the defense of the f2 square, and I think when the position gets broken on f2, then black should be much better. So here after a5, that's why queen to g4, hitting the pawn, but of course Stockfish protects it, and not only protects it, keeps of course an eye on the f2 square. We have now queen to e2, queen to b6. Again, new pressure here against the main target now in white's camp. Rook to a2 here by Super Ultra, and now h6. And here my Stockfish engine at home says that black should be even slightly better, nothing spectacular, but Stockfish is preparing here a g5 goal, is trying somehow to further open a position. We have now king to h3. What you could try, maybe instead of king to h3, is maybe to play b4 to open for yourself somehow this position, but then after a takes b4, c takes b4, and queen to the b7, the queen would take over the function of maybe of a light square bishop now, and now you have to worry something about here on this diagonal, and also the dark square bishop is already dangerous here. So now there's enormous pressure against against white's king, pardon me, and d5 I think is then the method how you break and enter here from black's perspective. So after move h6, we have now king to h3. Super Ultra gets out of this potential attack on light squares. King to c7. Again, Stockfish is searching for improvements of the queen. We have now f3. What you could try is maybe to get again this battery on the a file, but then bishop to b6 solves everything, and still there is a problem about the square f2. I'm showing you this line in order to really demonstrate that white can never attack anything on the queen side because you have so much to worry about the square f2. So that's why f3, first of all, here by Super Ultra, improving the position of the pawn, and now Stockfish goes with g5. And when you ask yourself maybe sometimes the question in chess, when should I push pawns? Pushing pawns is actually the best idea when all of your other pieces have already reached the maximum activity, and that's exactly the case now. Look at this: the rook on f6, great; the rook on f8, great; queen on c7 could maybe get some kind of improvement, but not with a clear attack. Bishop is great now, of course, on this diagonal, and now there's simply no further really great improvement for black with any of these pieces. So that's why probably the next best move is a pawn move, and that's exactly what Stockfish is doing. g5, h5. Here, Super Ultra is trying, of course, to keep the files locked somehow, and Stockfish continues now with an improvement with queen to f7. We have now king to g4. Here, Super Ultra tries to defend this pawn on f3 in a really spectacular way, I would say. Really wild stuff. Actually, my Stockfish engine at home also suggests that you should go with queen to g4, because when you think about it harder, black doesn't have any more the light square bishop. You would love to have maybe a knight somehow, or maybe a light square bishop that could endanger the king on g4, but so far it's not possible. Maybe through light squares, but Stockfish found a different way how to create madness against the king on g4. It played now queen to g7. The issue about this move, queen to g7, is if you play carelessly here, if you try something like rook to a5, this wasn't playing the game, but I wanted to re-demonstrate you again. If you go for the pawn, then you get destroyed. That's the issue about the move queen to g7. Rook to f4, you can just maybe take the rook, but now after a couple more moves, you get checkmated, or you maybe can escape if you don't want to pick up the rook, but then g4 is breaking through here. You can maybe try something like this: rook to f3, rook takes f3, g takes f3, the pawn is rolling, you're getting destroyed, the queen is connected now finally to the bishop, nothing can be done. Game over again here for white. So here after queen to g7, that's why Super Ultra had to keep now the queen somehow connected to this to the defense of the king. We have now queen to f7. We have now queen to e2. Again, here now rook to f4 is not working because of knight to f4, g takes f4, and now the king could escape here because the queen is close enough to the action, so nothing spectacular can happen. So after queen to e2, that's why bishop to b6, first of all by Stockfish, first of all protecting now the a5 pawn. Now Stockfish wants to defend finally this isolated pawn on the a file. We have now rook to a3, we have queen to g7, again with the threats of rook to f4, that's why queen to e1, again a Super Ultra is trying to cover the dark squares. We have now queen to f7, we have now repetition, and after queen to e1, again we have the same problem. All of the pieces are gaining already the maximum activity. There's simply no better improvement of the minor pieces. And what are we doing now? We push the pawn, of course. Which pawn to push? a4, of course, doesn't make sense because the rook will take it. So that's why Stockfish plays an aggressive d5. This is the way they go. And if you pick up now the pawn on e5, this wouldn't be good. This game over actually again here for white. Again, rook to f4 with the same method. And now I don't know if you take the rook, then here rook to f4, we pick up here the knight, and rook to h4 is now a huge threat. You can just prolong the game, but now after a couple more moves, look at this, you can just try this one, but when the queen is coming here and then on h3, it will be a beautiful checkmate. Even if you after rook to f4 don't pick up the rook again, you play something like king to h3, then again we pick up this one again. If you try to pick up the rook to f4 with rook to h4 is game over for white. So that's why for d5, rook to a4 by Super Ultra, queen to h7. Again, you cannot pick up here this pawn because you get this one. Now the bishop would take over on dark squares, and even if you cement your knight on g6, the game is so bad. Then again, the queen is taking over the function of the light square bishop. Again, we have this bishop and queen crossing all over the board against the white king, and now you can pick up the piece, but after king to f8, nothing can be done. Even if you try to escape, then the rook is hanging. If you try to, I don't know, step back with the rook, then e5 is here a spectacular checkmate with a beautiful queen activity. So here, instead of knight to g6, what you could maybe try here is to retreat with your knight. Okay, you say, I took a pawn, now I want to retreat, bring my knight into the defense, but again, it's not working because of e5. You maybe try to this one, but then queen to f5 is a beautiful checkmate. Or if you try knight to c5, instead of taking this pawn, then bishop to b6, you step back, and then again the queen is taking over on the light square. So this move d5 that Stockfish played here is really great because it could finally liberate also the light squares against white's king. So that's why Super Ultra kept it calm, played queen to e2, queen to g7, again with the threats of rook to f4, queen to e1, again Super Ultra defends with the same way, queen to d7 and attack against the rook, and now Super Ultra defended with b3. Here, my engine at home says that this is a tiny little inaccuracy by white. Here, Stockfish suggests that you should play rook to a1, but again, it's so bad. Then queen to c7, I don't know, you're trying rook to c1, then we put more pressure against this one. Even if you pick up again the pawn here, then the issue is d takes e4 is going to happen, and you have tactical problems on the f file. So again, nothing gained here, I would say, here. For white. Again, you're getting destroyed around the square f3. The king is endangered anyway, so this line is also not working. So after queen to d7 b3, played by Super Ultra, and now Stockfish again improves the position of the dark square bishop. Again with this same threats of rook to f4. The Super Ultra has to be careful when this rook to f4 method is working. So here c4 by white, d takes c4, and even if you play, of course, b takes c4, then the rook is lost. So Super Ultra tried the counter attack with knight to c5. Stockfish plays now queen to f7. Again, this dangerous battery on the f file. Super Ultra protects it with queen to f2. I've also analyzed queen to e2. If you don't want to maybe get in front of the rook on the f file, if you try to protect the pawn in a different way, then c takes b3 is the issue, and you're trying maybe to attack this one, but then queen to e7 attack against the knight, you're trying to protect it, we attack the piece, you, I don't know, pick up this pawn, and then rook to f3 is actually working, queen to f3, rook takes, king takes, and now you push the pawn, deflect the rook from the defense of the knight on c5, and with this decisive material, again this should be game over here for white. So that's why after queen to f7, as I said, queen to e2, queen to f2, here Super Ultra tried queen to f2. Stockfish again, you see, with the same method, all the pieces are having now maximum activity, there's simply no pawn movement. Now we can just improve a little bit the position of the king. Again, I would say really beautiful thematic move. We have now b takes c4. If you take with rook to c4, then rook to f4 is again working. Then again, you get this tactic, the g file is open, you get the king here, the rook is coming into the game, and now the correct way is here to play queen to h5. You can just cover, but the easiest way, it's not the most correct way, is immediately to pick up the queen and then you pick up the rook, but there is a better way. You first of all deliver check, and then deliver a new check, then you again try something like this, you attack the queen has to be now placed here on h3, and now you pick up this one, and it's a different story with this supported pass pawn. Here it's simply game over. You can maybe try this one, but we can just push the pawn, and black is again winning decisive material. The rook is far away, simply too far away from the action. So here, that's why instead of rook to c4, Super Ultra tried b takes c4. Stockfish continues now with bishop to b6, pins now the knight against the queen again, rook to a3. We have now rook to f4. Finally, the tactic is working now because Stockfish gained, as I said, the maximum activity. Now it's time to crush here in this position. G takes f4, G takes f4, again with the threat of rook to g1, king to h3, rook to g8 with the threat of queen to h5 checkmate, queen to h4 here by Super Ultra, and after bishop to d8 in this particular position, white resigns. So what's the issue? You have to give up now the queen, of course, here. Then again, it's decisive material here for black. If you don't want to lose the queen, then queen to h5 is winning because you have to cover, and this would be then a beautiful checkmate here. So incredible game here by Stockfish. I really loved this idea in the beginning to activate your dark square bishop in a different way. Really thematic idea here. Bishop to A7, having this heavy artillery already on the f-file with the support of the Dark Bishop, with an improvement of the Queen, Stockfish created here a really monstrous attack against Super Ultra in the Lasker-Pelikan Sicilian. So, okay, I hope that you enjoyed this game. I really enjoyed it a lot. This is really epic how Stockfish improves, of course, the theory of some openings. If you want to see some other beautiful games in this Lasker-Pelikan Sicilian, check out our playlist so far. I've covered many great games, also from White's perspective, also from Black's perspective. I think it's really one of the best openings against T4, really one of the best openings for Black. And if you want to see some other beautiful, spectacular, sharp tactical games like this, check out our commented chess games played by computer series. Here's also the link, and if you like this content, hit the subscribe button. See you soon with some more videos, and what do we say in the end? Chess is the best, of course.